Daily news. Today we're welcome to Creature Guy Live Daily News. Today we're going over a terrifying new species of theropod dinosaur coming in from South America and going over another new species of archosaur from let's see, it looks like Asia, and then seeing what's going on with mammals in the current day. Specifically, I think what happened with a massive rare beached whale. And we are streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. So let's head back to the Mesozoic. So from Sci News, Coelico shiny, new theropod dinosaur unearthed in Argentina. So a team of paleontologists has found fossil fragments from a remarkable new species of theropod dinosaur that walked our planet around 94 million years ago. Interesting. So, who do we have here? This did take place a few years back, but this animal is definitely not often talked about. So this is towards the early late Cretaceous, so being around 94 million years ago. This is around the same time when different species of larger theropod dinosaurs, like when referring to different members of the Carcharodontosaur lineage, different species of sauropods were going extinct. But also that was occurring in different parts of the southern hemisphere, especially over in northern Africa, all over South America, and even Australia to an extent. And what's astounding about this species is unless it's an earlier type of tyrannosaur, which I highly doubt considering to this day we don't have any evidence of different species of tyrannosaurs existing over in South America. So this is a big mystery, and it's an animal that evolved a very or the exact same mutation as other species of Tyrannosaur, especially the earlier species, considering it has two-fingered arms, and they're compared to many species of theropods. It's in relative proportion or match proportions of its body size. And there's some mysterious ornithopod that's chasing. So possibly an elasmerian, so maybe more closely related to the Leanosaura from Australia. Leanosaura has not been around at this point for 12 million years. So the newly discovered dinosaur lived during the Upper Cretaceous epoch in what is now northern Patagonia, Argentina. The creature, which has been named Gualico shunyi, was a medium-sized predator weighing around 450 kilograms or 1,000 pounds, comparable to a polar bear. If you're talking about a male polar bear, it's a small polar bear. Fossil remains of the dinosaur were found in rocks from the Huincal Formation, which has yielded many specimens of sauropod and theropod dinosaurs. Yeah, I mean, the Huincal Formation, we do find a wide variety of different species of certain theropods, sauropods from the region, and I think certain smaller species of ornithopods, possibly elasmerians or um, the smaller lineage that would have descended from creatures in North America, such as Dryosaurus. But Dryosaurus was existing in the United States around 150 million years ago during the late Jurassic. Okay, let's bring up Deltadromeus. So Deltadromus.
EUS.
Oh, right. It is interesting considering this animal is not a species of small ornithopod either, considering it has dromeus in its name. But I believe there were certain other species of carnivorous dinosaurs that had that type of an ending, but um, it's more abundant in species such as Orodromeus, which were small ornithopods existed. In fact, we have evidence of those ornithopods burrowing in different parts of North America. But Deltadromeus is a species of late Cretaceous carnosaur that existed over in Niger, Morocco, around 98 million years ago.
Okay, these guys look totally different.
Yeah, it is a bit of a debate as to what specifically this animal looked like, considering it does seem to have A somewhat smaller skull compared to its body size than when looking at a wide variety of different species of carnivores, especially the species that it coexisted with back in the early late Cretaceous. There were different types of crocodilomorphs that it coexisted with at this time, just not specifically the large Sarcosuchus that lived about 12 million years prior over in northern Africa. Oh yeah, I guess that is interesting when it comes to more recent reconstructions of Delta Dromius, is that a lot more feathers have been added to this creature. In some cases, it can have a bit of a dromaeosaur sort of a look to it, but it is very distantly related to the dromaeosaur lineage. See what's so yeah, having a bit more in common with the different species of Allosauridae or the Carcharodontosaurs. It does seem to have somewhat, possibly weak arms compared to its body size. But then again, if you're comparing it to certain other species of theropod dinosaurs or lineages in general, they could definitely help with taking down prey or at least medium sized prey compared to this carnivore size. So Delta Dromius was somewhere around maybe 20 to well, maybe 25 to 30 feet in length, or pushing between maybe around 8 to 9 meters, and probably weighed somewhere around 1.5 tons. So it was a medium sized species of theropod dinosaur, even for its time. But when it comes to the precise classification of Deltadromeus, it is a bit of a mystery, considering the bones have been quite fragmentary, but it, in some cases, can have a bit of a similarity to different species of Coelurosaurs, especially the Megaraptorids.
And again, if you know, you know.
That's okay. This is extremely odd that under Deltadromeus' name, this picture popped up. And considering I didn't even mention Megalosaurs, I mentioned the Jurassic. Wow, is that what it's come to? If I mention the Jurassic, then he's likely this picture will pop up. That is interesting. No, this is not a species of Allosauridae. This is specifically Megalosaurus, which belongs to Megalosauroideae. It did not coexist with Deltadromeus and is very distantly related to that theropod.
Why?
Um, yeah, also, I mean, covering the chicks and feathers is likely very accurate. And I think the feathers were probably protruding all the way to the end of the tail at their age. Maybe as they um, matured, the amount of feathers that would cover the body might have shortened to the back of the tail or the back of the caudal vertebrae. But outside of that, I mean, this is a good depiction of the animal. I mean, I guess you could say it is a bit of a question as to why this specific type of mysterious theropod decided to evolve very similar mutations, like when looking at the skull build or even the arms. Like with what you see in different species of coelurosaurs, like dromaeosaurs or even carcharodontosaurs. But there are some instances, especially with this model, where it does carry an almost allosaur type of a arm build, but they're also making them, I think, quite skinny this instance. Like you can almost see his entire um, bone structure within the body itself. It's a bit creepy, almost like he's either too skinny or that's just how lean of a creature he is. Maybe it's just I think it's just creepy when looking at his, humerus bone or his upper arm bone. I mean, the neck seems fine, and, I think there's a slight bit of an indent when it comes to the rib cage on his core.
Oh, somebody did
The
this.
rest of the body seems fine. They're almost giving him, like, a bit of a Guanlong sort of a, skull build, so one of the earlier Asian species of Tyrannosaurs, like members of Proceratosauridae. That is odd for Deltadromeus. The arms are quite thin too. Whoa, okay, this is different. This is almost like they tried to combine a very disrespected baryonyx, at least when it comes to the baryonyx build, and yeah, I guess combine it with a deltadromeus. I'm not sure where to put this. I think I've seen a depiction of a theropod dinosaur with very narrow skull, like in one of the older Land Before Time movies. It's not hitting me what kind of a sharp tooth this would be. I'm assuming some sort of a um, spineless spinosaur. And what I mean by that is it did have, its um, slight back vertebrae, but it just wasn't to the extent. Baryonychids, which is the family of spinosaurs I'm referring to, did not, for the most part, obtain very large sails compared to other spinosaurs, but technically Suchomimus had an elongated spine, just not baryonyx. But it is a mixture. I would say the arms are very different from many species of spinosaur, and they're very thin, even when it comes to the lower humerus or the lower upper arm bone. Yet the forearms are given a little bit of muscle, and he obviously does not train his wrists. Oh yeah, this is a good representation of the animal. Yeah, very odd. It has very similar mutations with a wide variety of dinosaurs. It's like it wanted a um, hmm, just a mixed complexion of different types of physical characteristics. I would say there's not much about it. Actually, maybe the neck and the core, you could possibly compare it with certain types of smaller carcharodontosaurs or even earlier members of Allosauridae, but not so much the larger carcharodontosaurs at this point. The legs seem much more matched with the overall body structure. He seems to have taken down some Rubacosaurid diplodocid sauropod, which were quite common over in northern Africa during the early late Cretaceous at this point. But yeah, the skull structure. These are 1960s Deinonychus.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, I mean these are icons for paleo models, but no, these are not Deltadromeus. Yeah, that one's a bit of a mystery. Well, here's what they found of the creature. Three caudal vertebrae are along the tail. Um, what about five different back vertebrae? Unless I'm just looking at the rib here. It's still good to see that we found two ribs. The arm structure is completely intact. So that's astounding to see. And both femurs are both thigh bones and both of the upper part of the shin bone. What on both legs? Like, what's that about? I mean, this has occurred with and even the ankle bones or the metatarsal bones. This is odd. Both
So
feet.
somebody found the, half of the bones tasty
Yeah, it seems that way. And then the feet or the toes, they're
on
fully intact.
both of them.
No, no skull. I
Yeah,
wonder.
so how did they come up with what it looks like?
My assumption is, or my theory is that they looked they looked at the overall build of the bones or the morphology and looked at which other theropod dinosaur this most closely resembles. And from that, they probably just slightly tweaked certain characteristics within the skull, and at least when depicting the animal, and that's how they came up with that picture. Wow, very much intact. Those are great claws. And yeah, even the thighs or the femurs, not going to leave them out. And the rest of the body and the smaller finger claws. I only see two here. Unless these are the other two. I don't think it's showing us all of the bones. Because it mentioned they found toe bones. Unless this is a toe bone. That's possible. Yeah. Hmm. Might go over it a bit later. So, Gualico shinyai belongs to a group of medium to large bipedal theropod dinosaurs known as allosaurids or allosauridae. I was assuming that it might have been a member of allosauridae, considering how, when looking at the skull structure they gave it, it's very much within that clade, and also it's South America. There aren't any tyrannosaurs within the region that or they never occurred in the region during the Mesozoic. So, yeah, it seems to make sense. So, the dinosaur is very different from the other dinosaurs that lived near it. It looks most like Deltadromeus, a meat eating theropod dinosaur with slender arms found in northern Africa. Um, I guess I have to be careful with the tyrannosaurs, like not ever existing within South America, but at least at the moment, doesn't seem to be any evidence for that occurring, like not even fragmentary remains. So they possibly were cut off. Um, there does seem to be evidence, or there is evidence for tyrannosaurs inhabiting Mexico, but that's just southern North America. So despite its
Wait, you
large
mean Tyrannosaurs in general?
Yeah, this refers to all tyrannosaurs. T-Rex specifically, there isn't any evidence of that specific species inhabiting Mexico, but there were certain specimens found in recent years of what seems to be Tyrannosaurus-sized um, theropod specimens coming in from late Cretaceous Mexico, but that's still heavily debated. Despite its large size, Gualico forelimbs were the size of a human child's. Um, That's interesting. They make it or it looked much larger in the
Not just
depiction.
that, what size of a human child?
Well, what kind too, but
Well, yeah,
yeah.
but I meant a 3-year-old or a 15-year-old.
Well, yeah, actually, that's what I was thinking. Somebody very short. And like the famous theropod dinosaur Tyrannosaurus Rex, it had just two digits, thumb and forefinger. It wasn't just T Rex. You had it where most tyrannosaurs, you had certain species like Tyrannus that had three claws. Like even Guanlong, Zilong, and further back, certain tyrannosaurs had five. So, um, or possibly, definitely around four. So T Rex is usually seen as the only two-fingered species of theropod, but there were many species, and not even in the Tyrannosaur lineage itself. Certain members of the Allosaur lineage also had just two fingers. Gualico shiny is a kind of mosaic dinosaur. It has features that you normally see in different kinds of theropods. A team member, Dr. Peter Makovicki of the Field Museum. It's really unusual. It's different from the other carnivorous dinosaurs found in the same rock formation, and it doesn't fit neatly into any category. While Gualico shiny doesn't explain why so many theropod dinosaurs had reduced forelimbs, it adds to evidence that the trait evolved independently numerous times. Yeah, I mean, this is over in Allosauridae. It's odd. Um, okay. I guess let's bring up Yang Schwannosaurus. So Yanchuano.
That's weird.
Oh, okay. So yeah, this is further back into the Jurassic, around like 150 to 160 million years ago. So you had it where Yangchuanosaurus was one of the largest predators to exist over in East Asia and specifically China at this point. Also, coming up against some of the largest species of sauropods to inhabit Asia, such as Mamenchosaurus.
Okay. What is this?
This could be him. It's just a more robust version of the species. So Yangchuanosaurus is interesting. In some cases, it can have similar characteristics to Ceratosaurus, despite being quite distantly related. Also, when even looking at the arms of Yangchuanosaurus, they're much more heavily built compared to Ceratosaurus, which um, is sometimes depicted as having quite lean types of arms, and others a little more bulky, similar to Yangchuanosaurus. But yeah, he seems to have taken down a Chinese species of stegosaur, which were likely quite common within late Jurassic China. and even into the early Cretaceous. Stegosaurs did quite well over in East Asia.
I always find it funny when people are making models and they have a tendency to look like toys, but we know they're models, and they're always smiling.
Yeah, sometimes. I'm not sure if this guy is smiling. He looks a bit confused. He's making a bit of a fake smile, like he's concerned about going after the Mamenchosaurs, and there's been a lot of um, fatalities within his species and attacking those giant sauropods. So he's very nervous. Um, or he's just not very intelligent. But for this time, I mean, Yanxuanosaurus was likely some one of the smartest predators to exist specifically over in Asia. I definitely would give the Allosaurs over in North America and Europe um, a bit more of a praise, at least when it comes to the intelligence spectrum. But I might have to review his brain structure, at least comparing it to those allosaurs. Now, Yanxuanosaurus was probably pushing somewhere between 30 to 35 feet in length, or 9 to around 11 meters, and probably weighed somewhere around 3 tons. So, this was one of the largest species of carnivores, not just to inhabit Asia, but the Jurassic itself. So, it's competing with other species of Jurassic predators such as Allosaurus and Torvosaurus. Ceratosaurus did not approach this size. They weren't necessarily small either, definitely weighing 1.5 tons or more in some cases. But Yanxuanosaurus, it is interesting when you look at the skull structure, especially in that former model. I think that could possibly be a Yanxuanosaurus. Yeah, he's got the crest look. Um, it almost has a bit more of like an belly sword sort of a build, and not so much of like the Ceratosaurus sort of structure that we would see in other models, or at least other more recent reconstructions. It is interesting. It also seems to be quite common for those small osteoderms to be placed along the neck and likely even exceeded to the end of the tail. Now, what um, possibly would have benefited the animal with those osteoderms along the back is a big question. And the same goes for different species of sauropods. Yeah, I think that's a good representation. I'm trying to think what possibly book from the 1980s or 90s that might have come from. So let's see. While Gualico Shini doesn't explain why. By learning more about how reduced forelimbs evolved, we may be able to figure out why they evolved. It's a huge question as to why different species of theropod dinosaurs, like the Tyrannosaurs or the Gualico in this case, so this odd Allosauroid, and even different species of Alvarsaurs evolved small limbs, as well as even later into the Cenozoic era. Actually, not even the Cenozoic, the Mesozoic. You had different lineages of birds evolving very small arms compared to their body size, and therefore very tiny wings and not capable of lifting them off the ground. So, why did evolution decide to take this path? And also, when looking at all these species, they tend to prioritize their mouth when it came to attacking other creatures and probably even lifting different objects as well. Okay, so let's head over to another part of the Mesozoic. So from News, Wallosaurus massari, forgotten fossil, is new species of ancient dolphin-like reptile. Probably talking about an ichthyosaur, which is a group of marine reptiles that existed over 250 million years ago and mysteriously disappeared about 90 million years ago in the early late Cretaceous. So, a new species of ichthyosaur that lived about 200 million years ago has been identified from a fossil found in a quarry in Nottinghamshire, England. So, this seems to be at the very beginning of the early Jurassic that we find, well, this specific species of ichthyosaur, but as well as a wide variety of other different lineages of ichthyosaurs. And into the Triassic is when we find the largest species, such as the um, relatives of Ichthyotitan and Shastasaurus, weighing well over 80 tons. So the Nottinghamshire fossil is from the early Jurassic, and only several species of ichthyosaurs are known from this period, making the discovery very significant. The fossil had been in the collections of Leicester's New Walk Museum for more than 60 years until University of Manchester paleontologist Dean Lomax spotted unique features. The specimen is relatively complete, consisting of a partial skeleton including a skull, pectoral bones, limbs, pelvis bones, ribs, and vertebrae. There's definitely a lot of this creature that they discovered. But um yeah, it just hit me. It was already in storage for 60 years. So it's one of those specimens like many that we've seen before for some reason were just ignored. So that's quite odd. Possibly also in further depending on how far back you travel with paleontological studies, they just put it in with an invalid ichthyosaur genus. Now, um, okay, I guess let's bring up somebody else. Maybe the Symbolospondylis. So Cymbospon. This is actually a pretty good model from the 2002, I think, documentary Chased by Dinosaurs or Sea Monsters, or that might have come out in 2003. But this is a large, or for the time, a medium sized species of ichthyosaur that roamed the ocean of the Triassic over 212 million years ago. And this creature was probably pushing somewhere around 20 to 25 feet in length, or anywhere between 6 to 7.5 meters, and likely fed on different species of ammonites at the time, or the cephalopods that are distantly related to squids, as well as squids themselves. And at this point, you didn't have different species of the massive, long skulled, and short necked pliosaurs roaming the oceans and the long-necked marine reptiles, and specifically the plesiosaurs, had not evolved yet. Also, the smaller ichthyosaurs with, um, yeah, the smaller ichthyosaurs really wouldn't appear until the late Jurassic. Well, actually, the Jurassic itself. So after about 202 million years ago, these animals were dominating the oceans of 212 million year old Pangea. And this animal was probably just feeding on also, looking at the tooth structure and even the skull itself, possibly younger Sauroptegan reptiles of the time. It is a bit odd when it comes to the build, especially towards the end of the tail, considering it's not like many species of ichthyosaurs during the time or later. Usually they have that distinct dorsal fin. It has been a bit of a debate when it comes to certain larger species of ichthyosaurs, especially members of the Shastosaur lineage, are occasionally represented as having this type of a tail. But it does have a very long and slender type of a build, almost very similar to today's beaked whales. Also, these animals, like the pliosaurs and the plesiosaurs, were not able to consistently live underwater. They did have to come up for air probably every 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how long they stayed at the surface for. Also, in many cases, when it comes to different species of ichthyosaurs, we tend to find them in shallow seas. So, probably in some cases with depths not exceeding much more than 300 feet, or maybe pushing somewhere around 90 to 120 meters.
Okay, this shows how big the head is.
Of Symbolospondylis?
Oh, I put the wrong thing up. Yeah, hold on.
I think okay, it did have a very large skull compared to many species of ichthyosaurs, but It could be that I'm confusing it with another larger species, but besides that, I mean, this is a very intact specimen. It's very well preserved, and that tends to be for many species of ichthyosaurs in general. Also, coming in from the Jurassic, and we have many specimens of different species of ichthyosaurs where the pups are still inside the rib cage. Yeah. Um, okay, I'm wondering then if I'm confusing the size with another lineage of ichthyosaurs from the Triassic. So, I mean, with this type of a skull length, this would mean that the animal is pushing maybe 60 to 70 feet. You could have it with a shorter length of possibly 50, but that seems to be pushing it with what I'm guessing is at least a 6 foot long skull or around 1.8 meters. It's probably longer,
Wait a minute, you're saying you think it's how long?
possibly 60 to 70 feet.
No, before.
Oh, I thought maybe it was like a 20, 25 foot long. Um,
When I look it up, it says 13 to 16 feet.
Maybe it's a specific another species of Symbospondylus.
There's different ones.
Yeah, so this is probably the largest of the genus. So I'm assuming is reaching that length, which is not surprising for Triassic ichthyosaurs. You just have it with certain species like the Shastosaur lineage, which is distantly related from the Symbospondylus, could reach lengths of probably over 80 to 100 feet.
Wait a minute. So these are ichthyosaurs?
Yes, these
How
are all.
many different ichthyosaurs are there?
We have found well over 40 different species of ichthyosaurs. Okay, let's head back to the article. So, however, the bones are disorderly, and it appears that the carcass nosedived into the seabed before it became fossilized, which may have restricted previous study. When I first saw this specimen, I knew it was unusual. It displays features in the bones, especially in the coracoid part of the pectoral girdle, that I had not seen before in Jurassic ichthyosaurs anywhere in the world. The specimen had never been published, so this rather unusual individual had been awaiting detailed examination. Parts of the skeleton had previously been on long term loan to ichthyosaur specialist and former museum curator Dr. Robert Appleby, and had only returned to the museum in 2004 after he sadly passed away, said Dr. Mark Evans, a paleontologist and curator of natural sciences at New Walk Museum. I forgot, how old is this specific species of ichthyosaur they discovered? It's Jurassic, I think? Early Jurassic. Okay, right, it was, 200 million years old. So right after the other massive ichthyosaurs went extinct, and pretty much replaced by species that don't usually exceed 20 feet or 6 meters. And, these animals were also probably not hunting any species of plesiosaurs or pliosaurs. Now, at this point, it's still quite early for the pliosaurs or plesiosaurs to have existed. And the ichthyosaurs are related to them as well. In fact, let's just bring up a species of plesiosaur, Cryptoclydus. So Cryptoclydus.
Cryptoclydus.
Yeah. And what also vary on the snout structure of ichthyosaurs too. Some had slightly wider snouts than others, but they were all pretty much in the same realm. Who is this? Oh, okay. So this is taking place over in England, or at least in the shallow seas around 160 million years ago during the mid Jurassic. And Cryptoclydus does belong to a specific lineage of plesiosaurs known as Cryptoclydidae. So we have a wide variety of other genre that belong to this lineage as well. Oh, okay. So I mean, it is a I do like the model for walking with dinosaurs. However, it doesn't seem that plesiosaurs had the ability to maneuver on land. Pretty much, if they ended up being beached, they were stuck. So, also, I think on rocks in this case, this would not really be possible. And the animal would probably suffocate under its own weight and dehydrate to death, or essentially evaporate. Um,
I was gonna say if he suffocated, he's already dead.
yeah, it would have been a bit of a slow process. What was another thing? Oh, there does seem to be evidence for cryptoclydids or plesiosaurs in general to have swallowed small stones to help grind the food in their stomach. It just in the documentary, I think it showed it possibly going after stones at one point. So, what do we have here? Yeah, you would have had it in the shallow seas of the mid Jurassic, especially around England, Central Europe in general, like different areas of Switzerland, Germany. We have found a wide variety of not just plesiosaurs, but even ichthyosaurs coming in from the mid and late Jurassic and earlier into the period too. Okay, this is definitely not him. This is likely a later species of plesiosaur that existed during the Cretaceous. Though we did have certain species of plesiosaurs with very large skulls compared to their body size. Not in this shape, however. They were much broader, a bit more round in shape, and not like certain Cretaceous sort of plesiosaurs, which were likely just feeding on smaller species of fish and also going after ammonites similar to other plesiosaurs, but not hunting larger marine prey. At least he has a tail fluke, but I think it's still a bit of an odd tail fluke. Mm, I'd say his upper teeth are a little too long compared to like the rest of the mouth, considering their teeth in general were quite similar in size. I mean, almost when you're looking at certain species of pliosaurs, such as Predator X or Liopleurodon, but they might not be the best to compare with, considering, especially Liopleurodon has a very distinct sort of a dental structure.
I like this old one.
Oh, yeah, what is this from the I don't know, I'm not sure if this is old. Might actually be quite recent. But the problem is with plesiosaurs also keeping their head out of the water and their whole neck. That is also a now very disputed sort of a lifestyle, considering it's very possible that the animal could have broken its neck in this instance. Also, just not having the ability to keep its head erectly out of the water. So essentially, the Loch Ness monster does not exist. It did around that region over 130 million years ago, but not simply today. Yeah, this is a great reconstruction of a Cryptoclydus with its young. Usually, also for some reason, the skull of Cryptoclydus in many depictions tends to be quite robust. In this case, it's giving it a much more sleeker sort of a look. Also, the tail fluke looks pretty good.
Okay, so England made a stamp, and it makes no sense.
What it probably is you have maybe crypto, yeah, as well as saying cryptoclytus and a Eustreptospondylus um confronting each other. So I would say plesiosaurs also would probably not be in this shallow of water,
Well, that was my thought. Is that water looks extremely shallow?
and they're not going to be wanting to confront any of the mainland predators, especially ones that still reach somewhere between 16 to 20 feet or maybe around 4.8 to 6 meters. The allows the plesiosaurs in general, there's no defense that they have against the medium-sized carnivorous theropods. They still have to avoid pliosaurs in the ocean. So essentially, like the ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs in many cases would have um, probably gotten along. There were certain species of sea crocodiles or sea crocodilomorphs specifically, like the metrorhynchids, that might have been an issue in certain cases. Many of them have quite thin and narrow um, skull build, so possibly they were also just focusing on different species of fish. So he was clearly intrigued by the specimen, and although he worked on it for many years, he had identified it as a previously known species but never published his findings. Are those teeth? They look like teeth. Yep. So Mr. Lomax has named the new species Wallosaurus massari in honor of paleontologist Professor Judy Massar and Bill Wall, who have contributed significantly to the study of ichthyosaurs and who first introduced Mr. Lomax to studying them. Both Judy and Bill have been tremendous mentors for me. So they have significantly contributed to paleontology, especially the study of ichthyosaurs, and I cannot think of a better way to remember them by naming this new ichthyosaur in their honor. Their names will be set in stone forever, pun intended. According to Mr. Lomax, Wallosaurus is the first new genus of ichthyosaur from the British early Jurassic to be described since 1986. Wow, it was that long of a gap? Usually, it sounds like um, ichthyosaurs from every part of the Jurassic are being discovered every year. Well, I wouldn't say every part of the Jurassic, but at least throughout the different parts of the Triassic, Jurassic, and early Cretaceous from England. So it's quite astounding, or at least since it's been that long. The new species is also important for our understanding of ichthyosaur species diversity and their geological distribution during the early Jurassic. Okay, well, this is interesting. There doesn't seem to be many bones, though, we found of this specific specimen. I do also wonder how large this animal would have been. Okay, well, let's dive forward into the Cenozoic era. So, from IFLscience.com, in 2024, the first dissection of the world's rarest whale revealed it had 9 stomach chambers. That's shocking. Why on earth would a whale need 9 stomach chambers? It's not like it's munching on vegetation, is it? So, a spade-toothed whale, the world's rarest whale species, washed ashore on a beach in Otago, New Zealand back in 2024. So, back in 2024, the first ever dissection of the world's rarest whale gave indigenous communities and conservation scientists in New Zealand a rare opportunity to learn more about one of their tawaka or treasures. So the marine mammal was a spade-toothed whale, Mesoplodon traversi, the rarest species of beaked whale on Earth. Only 6 specimens have ever been confirmed, and no one has ever seen one alive. Department of Conservation staff turned up to investigate reports of a dead beached whale near the small fishing village of Mouth on July 4th, 2024. When they arrived, they were shocked to find the 5-meter, 16-foot male was a spade-toothed whale, one of the most poorly known large mammalian species of modern times, said DOC Coastal Otago Operations Manager Gabe Davis in a statement at the time. This is me definitely very shocking, and it's unfortunate when it comes to many species of spade-toothed whales in general that most observations are when they're already dead and beached. So, this is not necessarily too much of a shocker, but I guess it's nice that we have more of an ability to study them in this case. So, such a creature washing ashore was a rare and pivotal opportunity to learn more about the species, marking the first time a complete spade toothed whale specimen had been recovered for examination. Now, the first ever dissection of a spade toothed whale has returned some novel insights about their anatomy. So, not only was this Tahora whale the first of its kind to be dissected by science, but it was also the first time our Hapu subtribe worked with scientists to pull together indigenous and Western knowledge systems so we can all gain a better understanding of the whale and its behaviors, said Runenga member Rachel Wesley in a recent statement on the dissection. This process was led by our Rataki, or young people, and guided by our esteemed guests from Nagati Way, Hori Pareda, and his son Te Karunyu, who are Tahuka experts in working with these Teoka or treasures. By working with and learning from leaders in Te Ao Morai, sounds like I'm stepping on thorns, as well as leaders in Western science, our Rekatai can revive ancient Maturaka knowledge and develop an in-depth knowledge system to pass onto the next generations. Okay, anything else about the whale? Their work revealed for the first time that spade-toothed whales have tiny vestigial teeth in their upper jaw. I'm guessing this is almost like mosasaurs, where they have an extra set of teeth in the back of their jaw, but they're quite large. Even I mean, they are smaller compared to the other teeth, but they're making out like these specific teeth are barely making a presence. So vestigial structures like this are considered remnants of evolution, demonstrating that they once served a greater purpose. And while now reduced, there hasn't been evolutionary pressure to lose the trait entirely. The reduced hind limbs of whales are often touted as another example of vestigial structures left over from their land lubbing days around 15 million years ago. So, this is referring to the specific species Pakicetus, which lived over in Pakistan during the early Eocene epoch and is the ancestor to every single species of whale. Now, the legs are reduced to hiney hip remnants, but they may still serve a rather steamy purpose. That's funny.
What? That's
Um,
a weird way to say something.
Um, this is the interesting thing about whales is that even though you do not see any really leg structures from the surface, they do have bits of leftover leg bones. It's kind of like with people, and you don't see a tail usually. Um, except we do have a small tailbone. So, let's see. Another curious feature of the spade-toothed whale was its many stomach chambers, 9 to be precise, and there were also some clues as to how they eat and communicate. In some of those stomachs, we found squid beaks and some lenses from the eyes of a squid, a few parasitic worms, ooh, and maybe some other parts of organisms that we are not quite sure of, said DOC Marine Science Advisor and beaked whale expert Anton van Helden. We have a parasitologist who will study them to find out what they are. We also found interesting structures associated with both feeding and sound production. Weights and measurements and descriptions were made of various muscles and organs to help us describe this. Let's just say various muscles and organs. Muscles are organs. Anyway, to help us describe the species and make comparisons with related species. These all add to the body of knowledge we are building. The death of a rare animal is a sad day for the species, but it's hoped by learning more about spade-toothed whales, we may be better equipped to conserve them in the future. Though it sounds like it had parasites, probably not a bad thing. But it is a question with so many beaked whales as to what the population is, and it's pretty much unknown for almost all of them, considering they're inhabiting very low depths of the ocean. These compared to other whale species, even the sperm whale, and they're practically almost not ever seen. There was once with a certain species earlier this year, but besides that, all the observations are of beached dead individuals. Uh, the individual was named Anumya by Terananga Otako in honor of the area of the same name where the whale was found at the mouth of the Tarai River, reestablishing a traditional practice that bonds them to the environment. Um, well, I guess it's a bit unfortunate with this whale. Still a good-looking individual. It is quite interesting. I think when comparing it to like the different species of ichthyosaurs, they have a very similar jaw structure. Also, I would possibly even compare it with certain species of like the Unearthed Theropod Dinosaurs or the Osteoraptors. So it is quite astounding how you have certain marine species of mammals, certain marine reptiles, sauropods, and even theropod dinosaurs that evolved a very similar tooth structure. And the interesting thing is, when you look at all three families, all of these carnivores essentially were feeding on fish. Like even when it comes to the raptors in that instance. So, yeah, that is quite remarkable. And I think it's also more astounding is that this animal was originally on land 50 million years back. And the Ostroraptorids, however, were pretty much just terrestrial. Ichthyosaurs, it's a bit of a mystery as to when their lineage decided to head to the water. Gosh, what does he have to be like? Maybe pushing at least 30 feet? Could be a bit
Huge.
off. I wonder how much blubber he consists of too. But yeah, 9 stomach chambers. That's why would a carnivore need that type of a digestive system? That's really something that you see and not with that many chambers, with different species of modern day herbivores, especially ungulates or two-toed animals.
They have
Hmm.
9 stomach chambers?
No, no, no. I believe around 5. I'm also wondering, like, when it comes to certain species of duck-billed dinosaurs or hadrosaurs that we've discovered, because we have found certain mummies, like, not just Leonardo the Brachiolephosaurus, but he is a very renowned one from Montana during the early 2000s. And due to how he was preserved, we can actually gain quite a bit of info into how his or not his stomach, but his overall digestive system would have looked like. Though I don't recall if we found evidence of a several chambered stomach. I would assume, considering how efficient at foraging these animals were during the late Cretaceous, that they might have a several chambered stomach. However, also you have it where flowers were first evolving at that point. They're likely going to be foraging on them. Ferns hadn't changed miraculously since the Jurassic or the Triassic period, which is also another type of plant that they're feeding on. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's just something, at least when it comes to terrestrial herbivores, that evolved when grasses first appeared. But this is a carnivore, so I'm definitely going to take a look, see where specifically is this animal native to, and like its overall oceanic presence, and then what are likely the smaller organisms. We know that this animal is feeding on giant squids, and there might have no, it wasn't a fish; it was parasitic worms that they were feeding on, or possibly just ended up using it as a host. Bit of a question with this animal. Okay. So thanks for joining. We'll give you all, or let me rephrase that. Um, Please put any comments that you have about prehistoric to current animals in the chat. Okay, thanks for joining. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guide Live Daily News. We're streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. And remember that nothing is better than all animals all the time.